Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bailey Body live show every Wednesday night. We are back again, although in a new setting. I am liking it out here. And we have our special guest today. This is Shelby Marie. She's our little corgi and she's so cute. So she's going to hang out with us today. So we are just going to hang out on the sofa tonight. I'm liking this because it's a little bit more relaxed and we can just kind of be ourselves. We have better lighting in here. So I think it's going to work out really nicely. And today's show, we are talking about IIFYM, which stands for If It Fits Your Macros. So if it fits your macros is short for macronutrients. So we're gonna, everything that we talk about here is our experiences with these things, our perceptions and our take on all of it. To hang out on everyone tonight, I'm liking this because we've got some feedback going on. And we can hang on a second. We have better lighting in here. Maybe I have a browser open somewhere. Really nicely. And today's show, we are talking about IIF. Let's see. Here we are. Okay. I didn't realize I had us in two different browsers open. Okay. So if it fits your macros, again, this is just kind of our perception, our experience of using these things, because I know most of our clients are not bodybuilders. Typically, the people that we might anger this evening would be bodybuilders who use this diet a lot. But that's part of what we're going to talk about, as to how If It Fits Your Macros works and who it works for and how to use it. Yeah. So I think let's start by just talking about the concept of If It Fits Your Macros, what it is, what it means, how it works. So you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially, for a beginner who doesn't know what it means at all, a macro is a macronutrient. So you have protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Now, if you've ever tried to work out your metabolic rate, sometimes if you go to the doctor, they'll work out your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. And that's essentially how many calories you're burning each day just to stay alive. Now, your metabolic rate, you can work out how many calories you need to eat per day to either maintain weight, lose weight, or put on weight. And there's a lot of variables in there as to what kind of weight that'll be. It's a very hormonal thing. It's so we're going to dive into that a little bit. But essentially, If It Fits Your Macros is looking at, say, for example, if you consume 2,000 calories a day, and 40% of that is protein, 30% is carbohydrate, 30% is fat. How many calories from protein? How many calories from carbohydrates? How many calories from fat do you have to consume each day to hit that requirement? And what type of foods can you fit in those different nutrients? So could you fit ice cream in your carbohydrate and fat calories? Could you fit some French fries in the carbohydrate category? So it's about essentially called flexible dieting, where you have a system and a structure, but you have a bit of flexibility around that. Would you say that's kind of roughly what it is?
Yeah. And that kind of the other term, I guess, is flexible dieting. Yeah. And what we think of it as is basically an advanced version of Weight Watchers. Yeah. Weight Watchers counts points. If it fits your macro, the concept is you're counting your macronutrients. You're counting, your grams and your calories from certain macronutrients, and then you're just filling it with foods, to fit that. Fit your macros.
Yeah. So essentially, this whole idea and concept of the diet is, there's two ends of the spectrum. The more responsible one, and the one that we would promote to you tonight, is that you fit most of those calories with whole, healthy food. And then you top it off with something that you might like as a treat. Maybe not even every day, maybe every couple of days, or however you want to do it. The more irresponsible way of doing it, and the way that it's been heavily sort of promoted online, is essentially just binge eating. And as long as you're hitting your calories for the day, you're good. So you could eat a pizza and drink Coke all day. And as long as you're consuming 2,000 calories of pizza and Coke, then you're hitting that calorie requirement, and then you lose body fat. And that works for a very, very small minority people, and we're going to kind of talk about how that works and why it doesn't work for most people. And then we're going to talk about what we would encourage a, if it fits your macros, flexible dieting sort of system would be. So essentially, do you want to talk about how it works overall?
Yeah, well, so if it fits your macros, people who kind of subscribe to that diet or that way of eating is they believe in the calories in versus calorie out model. That's essentially what it all boils down to. They're saying that, clean eating can be too restrictive, and all that you need to do is make sure that you're not eating more calories than you should for your body, for your energy expenditure. And as long as you, slightly decrease your calories, you're going to lose weight. And if you go over those calories, then you're going to gain weight. That's
kind of like the model that Weight Watchers works with.
Right. Yeah. It's just, a point system, and it's based on calories, and they're not really. Weight Watchers is different because it doesn't even take into account where those calories are coming from necessarily.
Just points.
Although they do have, I haven't looked into their new system, but I think they have a new Points Plus where it may be similar, even more similar to If It Fits Your Macros, where they're actually saying, there are some carb points and protein points and things like that. I'm not sure. Essentially, If It Fits Your Macros believes in calories in versus calories out. They keep it simple as far as that's what is going to make you lose or gain weight. So that's where I disagree with it. That's where I think that they are wrong in their approach, because as you've seen from everything that we do and from our clients, we've seen it over and over again, is that it's not just about calories in versus calories out because of the hormonal response that happens within your body. There are a lot of other things that are going on that can dictate whether you're going to gain weight or lose weight.
Yeah.
And, also I think just for the health reasons of it all, eating, 1,000 calories worth of cake is not going to have the same reactions within your body. It's not going to promote the same health as would 1,000 calories of healthy vegetables like that.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too far off of this point.
I mean, essentially, the main concept is always important to come back to. The main concept is that, and I use sort of a If It Fits Your Macros style of dieting, but I don't really call it that. I'm aware of where my calorie intake lies. I instinctively know. I've been eating this way long enough now to know instinctively if I'm putting on fat and when I need to pull it back. And I know what type of foods I can have at certain times. And it's important to understand that the majority of your diet should be whole, clean food. So, like Lauren was saying, like instead of the cake, like, chicken or broccoli and whatever, salads, all the healthy stuff that's good for you, 90+% of it should come from that. The other 10% should be from additional things if this was your, diet style of choice. So it's important to let go of that misconception that flexible dieting is pretty much where you just count calories and you can eat whatever you want, and as long as you're hitting your calorie intake, you'll be okay. Because you may find that you may lose some weight if you're a small minority of persons. Say, for example, if you are, especially guys, I find respond better to it. Younger guys, so if they're, a guy from like 18 through to like mid-20s, which probably doesn't count for many of the people watching tonight, already pretty muscular and a low body fat percentage. Especially if you're a woman, 30, 40, 50 onwards, and your body fat's a little bit higher, you don't just want to be going with the approach that I'm just going to count calories, I'm going to eat whatever I want, and as long as that food fits my calories, I'll just eat piles of junk and make sure fits in my calories. That's not what you want to do, because it will make you feel worse. The lethargy things, the sleep disruption, the skin breakouts, the dry hair, potential, insulin fluctuations that will affect your fat loss, that will play a role in how this will work. Yeah. So let's look at minerals, vitamins, and phytonutrients. So essentially what happens is the important reason why you want to get a wide variety of foods with flexible dieting, if it's your macros, is because you still want the mineral balance, vitamin balance, and phytonutrient balance that a healthy diet encompasses. If you can hit all those things, then having a little bit of ice cream or having that cookie or having that burger or whatever isn't actually that detrimental. I know it sounds weird to a lot of people, and we actually use a little bit of this strategy and system in our own program, where we call them refeeds, or free meals, or whatever they may be, where we get a person into a certain hormonal state, and then we allow them with something that they like. And that way, it makes the plan more sustainable. So flexible dieting is essentially going to help you maintain a plan, make it more sustainable. It's something that you can make more of a lifestyle, would you say?
Yeah, us incorporating refeeds is it would kind of be like if it fits your macros for one day, out of the week, or however many days are designated for that. But then even so, it's not, we don't use, for example, it wouldn't be calories or the macros or anything like that. And sometimes it's, the purpose of that day is to be higher than your normal days, but it still would be kind of, within a context. So you're eating, and that's, a lot of the people who do it right. And like I mentioned leading into this, a lot of the people who do use If It Fits Your Macros are bodybuilders, and a lot of them use it for as a more realistic approach to cutting and dieting down. But because they're in such good shape, they can have that flexibility within their diet and still lose weight because they have so much muscle mass to begin with. And I think that's a really key point. It's why it works for them, but it's, it's the reason why they shouldn't try to encourage everyone else to use it, because it doesn't work the same for everyone else.
And also, there's a difference between looking good and feeling good. A bodybuilding style, if it fits your macros diet, where you may be having a larger proportion of food that isn't that healthy for you, you may look good, but you won't necessarily be feeling good with it. So the whole point that we're getting back to is that when you want to incorporate a diet like this, one, you want to make it sustainable, so you can incorporate the little things that you like every day, or whenever, however frequently you want, but to a point where you're not sacrificing your optimal health and the way you feel for a look, because that's going to make it very unsustainable. That's going to lead to that kind of binge eating and cycle like that. So, more than anything, I think it's important to realize that we're not for or against any type of diet or system. It's just a tool. It's just a way to apply yourself. So I'll give you an example of and if it fits your macros, like a flexible dieting sort of strategy, like something that I might use, per se, or someone like me. And it's not to say that everyone should do this, but it's an example. So you could have your workout, and you could have your post-workout meal, and it might be some clean food. So it might be like some eggs and a salad, and then you may have like an ice cream or something. Because you've just worked out, you've burned some sugar for an ice cream to essentially replace that sugar in your muscles. So that's kind of like your little reward for the day. It's like your little break of sanity. You kind of get to have that thing, and then you get back on track, and you kind of keep eating the way that like a healthy person should eat. And that way, every day, every second day, or however frequently you want to do it, you're still allowed things that will help you. So I'm sure Lauren can give you an example of something if she was going to fit into your diet, beyond, you eat predominantly healthy food, but then, what's something that you...
Yeah, it would definitely be like ice cream.
Yeah.
Y'all know me by now that ice cream is my favorite treat. So, but that would be it. It would be, if I normally eat mostly a plant-based diet, and that meaning, I eat a lot of vegetables and nuts and seeds, fruits, and then I have my clean proteins, my healthy proteins mixed in there. And then as a treat, I can have some ice cream. I can have basically anything that I want, and that's, kind of the difference in, I think, people who understand their bodies, whereas people who just think if it fits your macros sounds like fun because they can eat whatever, in context that I want to feel healthy, be healthy, and if I eat, something that's not necessarily a healthy food once, then the rest of the clean, healthy foods, the vegetables and things like that with lots of fiber, all that stuff is gonna, be able to clean right through my body. So my body's gonna be able to handle that less healthy food, because I typically in my diet have good stuff and healthy stuff. So it's a lot different than if you're, eating all of your macros from, having Burger King for lunch, Taco Bell for dinner, Dairy Queen for dessert. That's a lot different than having regular structured meals, but maybe just say in one meal you have a smaller portion and then you have, 3 Oreos or something like that. It's like you have that flexibility that as long as you're still eating proportion is important. I think that sometimes the proportions of your different macronutrients are important, and so I think that If It Fits Your Macros has a good concept there. That they look at proteins, carbs, fats, and how they're working within your body, and so they're making you get all of the macronutrients, which is a good thing compared to some diets that will cut out a food group altogether. Like Atkins, they cut out all carbs, something like that.
Yeah, and I think the one I would say the biggest downside to flexible dieting for most people is that you have to count calories. It's a huge pain in the butt. Unless you are dieting down for a competition, like a bodybuilding competition or fitness competition, or you are already very low body fat percentage and you want to get even lower, but you want to make sure that you don't burn muscle mass. Counting calories is a very tedious, unsustainable approach. It's not practical when you're going out, and it's not very practical when you're in a social environment or just a busy person going through the day. So I would say that's the biggest barrier to why the normal person, I would say, should avoid flexible dieting, because you do have to be very diligent with your caloric intake, and that means you have to understand nutrition. You have to know how to figure out. You have to look at a nutritional label. You have to know how to figure out how many calories are in the protein, how many calories in the carbohydrate and fat. Fat's different to protein and carbohydrate. And you have to know how to add it all together. You have to know what type of caloric intake you're meant to be hitting. You have to know what type of ratio. So it's a very mathematical, technical thing. You can get people to help you with that, and you essentially hire someone to help you figure all that stuff out. But then at the end of the day, you're still having to weigh stuff, measure things, make sure that it fits the caloric intake that you're trying to hit. So that's the biggest pain in the butt.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's what I don't, like about these types of models. Like, I don't ever like to calorie count or anything like that, because it's a pain in the butt. Like, realistically, do you want to be doing that all day? Like, I know I don't even do it. And sometimes, like, if I'm working on something or doing formulas for that kind of stuff and figuring BMRs and all that, like, sometimes I just geek out on that because that's just what we do. But the average person doesn't want to be like figuring formulas and counting macronutrients and that sort of thing. And counting macronutrients, I mean, in and of itself, some people will say, well, how hard is that? It's just, you just add up your macronutrients. Well, yeah, but at the same time, like, it's just a pain in the butt. If you go out to eat, you have to weigh things. If you go out to eat, it's like, well, what's in this? You have to try and figure out where it came from, right? You don't know really what it's cooked with. And then if you're eating something, you have to figure, okay, well, how much, how many ounces is this, or how many grams is this? And then that determines how many calories it is and how many grams of each macronutrient is. It's like, it's a pain in the butt, and it's unrealistic, and it's too much work for me.
Yeah. But I mean, in saying that, the upside is that if you've been dieting long enough to have an instinctive feeling of where fat loss lies for you. And what I mean by that is that you don't necessarily count calories, but you know instinctively how much you should be eating consistently to put on weight, to maintain your weight, or to lose weight. And it's a subtle intuition, but a lot of people develop that over time. And if you develop that and threshold lies, you can subtly add in, the Oreo here, or the ice cream there, or the burger there, and kind of test the boundary and see, are you putting on fat? If you are, it means you're too high. Are you not going anywhere? It means you're still too high. Are you slowly dropping? It means you're in the good zone. You're in the green zone. If you're dropping you're too low. So that's probably how I approach it, but it takes time to get to that point. You have to be eating consistently enough, the same foods consistently enough for a period of time before you get to that stage where you know, okay, I'm in a fat loss mode. I can look at myself in the mirror, I can jump on the scale and just tell that my body's in a fat loss mode. And that's when you know you can add these foods, and that's how you make it sustainable. But you do need assistance, and you do need kind of the right environment to make that happen. And that's the hardest thing, is that most people don't have the right environment to make that happen. So maybe we'll talk about a little bit about the hormonal response, seeing as that that's something that if it fits your macros, doesn't necessarily address. Like Lauren was saying, they come from a calories in versus calories out model. And what that means is that calories in, essentially, if you're eating 2,000 calories, but your body is burning 2,200 calories, that means you're in a 200 calorie deficit, which means you're in fat burning mode. So essentially, they just go with an in and out model with however much you put in. If it's less, the same, or more than your body's metabolic rate, then you're going to achieve that goal regardless of what the nutrients is. So maybe do you want to talk a little bit about the type of hormonal response maybe in women, in terms of not just the calories, but the type of hormonal response that different foods can.
Yeah, well, I think even more so than men and women, I think the biggest thing is where you are starting from, where you are at in your journey. Because what I find is that, the leaner you are, the more lean muscle tissue that you have and the less fat, the more you are naturally going to be able to burn fat. And the more overweight you are, the more body fat you hold and that you have right now, then your body's going to be more in fat storing mode, and it's going to do different things. It's going to have different reactions within your body when it's metabolizing these foods, and whether it's going to be just automatically going into fat storage if that's what you've trained your body to do, or if you've trained your body to burn fat and to use the energy that you put in, then when something comes in, you use that for energy. It doesn't go straight into fat storage. So I think that's where this can work really well for people who are pretty lean already, or who at least have a substantial amount of muscle mass. If they train regularly, even if they're in their bulking season or something, and they have, say, an extra 20 to 30 pounds of fat right now, because they have so much muscle mass, it makes it really easy for them to adopt something like this and to get good results with it. Whereas if you are overweight and over fat, so if you have, a high percentage of body fat compared to your lean muscle tissue, then your hormone response is going to be different.
Yeah.
Your body is going to have different insulin responses. You could have thyroid issues, adrenal issues, other things that you're dealing with from, metabolic damage, from being unhealthy for so long. All of those things are different to your average bodybuilder who would be doing this. So, the foods that you put in are going to make a difference. If you are already in a kind of a metabolically damaged state, or if you already have been mistreating your body for a period of years and years and years, then if it fits your macros, and sometimes this is where it could be a good thing, I guess. If you're coming from that place where you've mistreated your body for a really long time, you could use if it fits your macros as kind of a transition, I would say.
Yeah.
Because it would allow you to not overhaul your entire diet and your entire way of life overnight.
Yeah.
It would give you that opportunity to keep in some of the foods that you like and that you're accustomed to eating, but maybe, start off by adding one healthy meal in every day, and then move to 2 healthy meals. But then you still have that flexible, but, by even paying attention now to the macronutrients, as opposed to just overeating like you used to, then this could be helpful. It could be like a transition. I urge you to move more and more, incorporate more and more of the healthy foods each day as you can.
Yeah, and I mean, go based on how you feel. Very often, a response that I notice in myself is that when I consume sugar or stuff like that, I get brain fog. I get tired, lethargy, and I get brain fog. And it's a neurotransmitter response to the food you're eating. So it's very important to understand that calories matter. but it's not just about calories. It's about essentially, what type of neurotransmitter production, what type of hormonal response are those calories making in your body? Because, like I said at the start, some people can get lean doing this, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to feel good doing it. They could feel like death. And most people who compete, that's why I've never had any interest in doing that, because most people who compete feel like death, even though they look good. They feel awful, because to get to that level and to diet down like that, it takes a lot of strain on your system. So you've got to understand there's a difference. So you want the best of both worlds. And I think that's really important. And in terms of like what Lauren was saying, with the different body fat percentages, you've got to realize that, someone who is leaner, has less body fat, is going to have a slightly different response to food than someone who has, 40 or 50 pounds of extra body fat on them. And that's why, it may seem unfair, and the world is like that. The world is, a very unfair place. And it's a strange paradox that the people who are often, the most overweight are the ones who, like Lauren was saying, you transition with a flexible diet, but they're the ones that will be most predisposed to storing body fat. So right at the beginning of your journey is going to be the toughest point in time where your body wants to store everything. And the further you get along your journey, the more responsive your body actually becomes. So it's a very grinding start at the beginning for a lot of people. But once you get momentum, your body starts to thank you for that, and it will kind of go back into balance. So remember, the hormonal response is important. That's why we always say, go for predominantly 90% plus like whole foods. And that way you're guaranteeing you're getting all the vitamins you need, all the minerals you need, and all the phytonutrients that you need, so you don't get cravings, so you don't get energy fluctuations. And that way, the food that you're eating that isn't to the plan, well, it is to the plan, but it's not necessarily congruent with a healthy diet. It's not going to be hormonally disruptive enough to maybe like throw your body off. So I think that's a very important thing to focus on. So let's talk about some suggestions on, when would be ideal times to use this, and what type of foods would be ideal at certain times. And I'll give you an example. Coming through, December now, we're in the holiday season. If you were to use, a flexible dieting sort of style coming up through the holiday season, you could be a little bit more flexible than what you normally are, knowing that as long as you're not overeating the food and you're not putting on body fat or weight, that you're allowed to have a little bit more flexibility. And what do you think about that? So you think that they sort of have, through December, they can have, you can have a little bit more flexibility as long as you're diligent about making sure that you're not over-consuming calories and you're not over-consuming the bad stuff too much.
Yeah, it's kind of like intermittent if it fits your macros, so it's kind of a cross between things. And that's why it's hard to, for us to say we like this diet and we don't like this diet, is because we just use what works from each,
piece.
method. Yeah. And, if we called ourselves IIFYMers, then people would be like, you're doing it wrong, So it's just, you take what works from, each thing. And like Fraser was talking about, using the holidays, for example, that's a good way to this. As long as
to stay sane.
Right. You can enjoy the holidays. I mean, it's basically what we're doing. You can eat healthy most of the time, and then you have the flexibility to enjoy and splurge. But I do think, kind of have a plan around it. Like, don't just do it randomly. You do want to make the most of it with your training sessions and things like that, just like we talked about with other diets that we've addressed on, previous shows. Same kind of thing, but definitely it allows you to not be a food weirdo, to have things that you want to have over the holidays, but to still achieve that balance, and to still, to healthy foods, enjoy your treats that you really like during the holidays, but to know how to do it to balance and you don't gain weight over the holidays.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong. You see people put on weight through November and December, and essentially what they're doing is they're just having a blowout. They're over-consuming calories, and the ratio of good food to junk food just gets disproportionate. Start to come unraveled. And that's where you've got to be careful with a flexible dieting strategy, is that you have to make sure you have a degree of discipline. You know, if you can have good food, if you can have some of this food in the house and not eat the entire box, that's good. But I know a lot of people who,
That's a really good
a
point.
lot of people like, you know, they can't have like 2 bits of chocolate, they'll eat the whole slab, or they can't have one Oreo, they'll eat the whole box. And that is a big barrier for a lot of people. So you've got to make sure that if you're going to have stuff in your house, that you have to have the discipline to not just gnaw on it all day. And what I would say is that if you don't have the discipline, go out and buy something while you're out. So, okay, if you're going through a drive-through, get a sundae or get a burger, or you know, if you're out at the store, get like a small ice cream, 1 serving, that's it. You know, so get something while you're out and have it while you're out, or bring it back home and just have that one thing, rather than being like a stockpile of stuff back with you and basically trying to spread that out over the next week, because you know that most of that's going to go before the week is done. So I think it's really important to focus on that. And also remember that, you know, if it fits your macros, you know, flexible dieting works for certain people, and it works in a certain context. But the context is very dependent on the person, on their hormonal status, on, you know, on your body fat percentage, on how active you are. You know, are you working out at the gym consistently, or are you sedentary? It can even your sleep quality can affect it. The types of foods that you're eating, you know, the ratio of the foods. So there's a lot of variables that will come into play for this thing is either legit or not. So, you know, like I was saying, you know, to recap, like the biggest thing I would say is the barrier is just having to count calories. That's the biggest pain in the butt, is that you have to be diligent knowing your calorie intake. Otherwise, if you get to the point where you know where your fat loss lies, it gets a little bit easier with that. The biggest upside is that it is sustainable in terms of it creates a diet that I think allows people to still have, to not, like Lauren was saying, not be a food weirdo. You know, you have the ability to eat pretty healthy, achieve your goal, but have a little bit of that extra stuff on the side that you like, so you're not feeling constantly deprived.
Yeah, it gives you that flexibility. And I think it just depends on, you know, like we said, where you are in your journey. I mean, for some people, they want to be healthier than that. They don't want to have, you know, they don't want to have treats like Oreos and ice cream and things like that, because they don't believe that those things are good inside their body, and they just they don't want to put that inside their body. And so, you know, that's where IIFYM might kind of fail on that side. You know, it may not be the right approach for them. You know, and I commend them for that. I think it's awesome that if you can be that healthy all the time, then definitely go for it. Like I said, I think this is good for people with a lot of muscle mass already, and it can also be good as a transition style diet.
Yeah. So essentially, that is it. Do you want to talk briefly about the New Year's challenge? That
we can mention that. So
that's how we're going to transition.
What we're doing right now, because we're not taking on any new fat apocalypters right at this moment through the end of the year, but we do have our early bird registration that is open now through Christmas Day. That's going to be for our New Year Transformation Challenge. And what that's going to be is a 4-week challenge where we are going to coach you. We're going to give you every single day your meal plans to eat, training plans to work out, whether you're at the gym, at home, just all of our coaching. You're going to get one-on-one accountability calls with us each week. So it's like our full coaching package, but we're doing it in a transformation contest. So everyone that joins can be doing it together, but then they're also going to be competing. So the best transformation at the end of the 4 weeks is going to win $250 cash prize plus 3 months of our Fat Apocalypse membership that's worth $300.
Yeah.
So early bird registration is open right now through Christmas Day only. The early bird registration is $149 for your registration fee, and then $97 a month. So what you would do is you pay $149 now, and then you'll pay your first $97 on January 5th. You can cancel it whenever you want after that, so no worries with that. But it allows you to break it into 2 payments. And after Christmas Day, that registration fee goes up to $200 plus the $97 a month.
Yeah.
So it's $50 discounted for the registration fee right now through Christmas Day. So that's your early bird registration. We don't start the program. This is New Year Transformation Contest. So it starts in the new year on January 5th. So you can register now, make your commitment to it, but know that you can enjoy your holiday. And then we're going to start with your New Year's resolution, and we're going to start it on January 5th.
Yeah, and I mean, the good thing about this in reflection of what we've talked about tonight is that we don't count calories in our programs. You know, like that is the biggest barrier, I think, for a lot of people to achieving success is, you know, having a rigid system where they have to count calories or measure things. In my mind, that's the biggest barrier to stopping people from actually achieving what they want. So then it comes down to, okay, if I don't count calories, how do I know how much to eat? So that's why we've created this system. We've got you covered on that front. So look, you know, in summary, flexible dieting, I think it's a good thing. I think that, you know, if as a transitioning tool or a tool for someone that obviously isn't, you know, 100% focused on optimal health, but they want a little bit of both worlds. So they want to look, you know, they want to look pretty good and they want to feel pretty good as well. There's, like Lauren was saying, you're always going to grow to that point where you may not want to eat as much of that stuff anymore because you just know the way it makes you feel. And in the end, I think that's the best place to be, because, you know, a lot of the reason why this type of diet is created is to allow people to still eat essentially the junk food of society and not feel like they're depriving themselves. So it's about getting to a place where you don't feel in the first place, which is a good place to be. But in saying that, every now and then you're going to want this stuff. You know, if it fits your macros, as long as it fits your protein, carbohydrate, and fat requirements, it works. But remember, you know, there's a whole hormonal factor in there as well. So it's not just as straightforward as what people often tell you. There's an underlying system as well of, you know, hormones and neurotransmitters that are produced based on the types of food you're eating. So that's very important to remember. And that's why we talk about this and we cover this stuff in our program. We basically get all this stuff done for you anyway. So
yeah, so that's it.
Yeah.
New Year's Transformation Challenge. If you're interested, go to thebailybody.com. You'll see the picture about it in the banner. You can click there and it will take you where you can register. Or if you have any questions before you do register, you can always email us at info@thebailybody.com. And of course, you can email us your topic ideas for these shows. If you have something in particular that you want us to talk about, please let us know. Or if you have any questions about something in particular, either that we have discussed in the past or that we haven't addressed yet, email us those too. All right, guys, so that's it. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.